anti-inflammatory, that have a lot of herbs and spices that can, support a healthy immune system and help decrease inflammation. And I always say about herbs and spices, they are the edible underdogs because they're often overlooked. But if you can pack them into your food, you get so many nutritional benefits. So both of these dishes are really showcasing that. So who's cooking? Is anyone cooking along? This is being recorded, so you can watch it at your leisure and cook along if you'd like. But I'm going to walk through 2 recipes. The first one we're going to do are the cabbage steaks. Now, you can sear them in a pan, but the way we're going to do this is we're going to bake them. It's much easier. So I'm going to start out by making the aioli. And please, also, if you have any questions, please chime in. This is, as I always say, I hope that these classes are totally informal and possibly transformative. So this is a running dialogue. So please do not hesitate for a moment to interrupt me, because I can talk on cooking. So we're going to start out. This is a high-speed blender. This is a Vitamix. And I'm going to make the aioli first for the cabbage. And if you see the recipe, it's 1/3 cup of olive oil. So any blender will do. If you have a food processor, you can use that as well. You can also, if you want, you can hand chop everything if you feel like it. But I'm going to do it in here. I put the olive oil in. I have some crushed red pepper that I'm putting in. And I just dropped a garlic clove in there, which is not what I wanted to do. So my crushed red pepper is going in. If you do not like spice, you can eliminate the crushed red pepper. And now to do the garlic, I'll show you guys a technique, which is smashing. So I'm just smashing like that and peeling the skin off. Now, this is something really important that I learned in culinary school that I love to tell everybody, because I have a lot of people who will say to me, I want to eat garlic, but I can't because I can't tolerate it. And a lot of people who go through chemo experience that as well. And so inside the garlic is something called the germ. So you guys can see, hopefully, what that is. And I'm pulling it out. You see that? And if you pull that out of the garlic, it actually helps mitigate some of the digestive upset that the garlic can cause for some people.
Which way do you tear it off? Like at the flat part or the top? Like which?
So, okay, so first of all, let me just tell you, some garlic you will not see the germ in, and that typically is super fresh garlic. So what I do, you see how I've opened that up kind of?
Yeah.
I go from the bottom and I peel it up.
Oh, yep.
You get it?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Who knew?
I did not know that.
I know, it's actually a really interesting trick. And it's really helped a lot of people that I've worked with over the years, because I did have a private practice for about 20 years where I worked with people privately, as well as teaching and writing. So one of the hardest things for me to do within the context of my work is follow recipes. So the recipes are always a guide, as I like to say. But I want you to kind of connect with the food, feel the food, and get creative, make mistakes. There really aren't any mistakes in cooking. But so I have that all in there. And now I'm going to take this. I'm in the middle of recipe testing for this amazing project I'm working on. So I have a ton of ingredients in my house right now. And this is my little bin of fresh herbs. So I'm cutting off, you're gonna do a cup of parsley. So this is about a cup, and I'm gonna toss that in just like so. I'm going to put in some salt as well. And then I'm going to just put that on my food processor. Hold on. I mean, my blender. Hold on. And it makes kind of a super chunky aioli. I actually, as Sherry knows, as I do with most of my recipes, I kind of ad lib as I go. I'm going to put in a little bit more olive oil because I want to get more liquid. Now, if I was in a food processor, I wouldn't need to do that, to be honest with you, because of the surface area that the blade covers. But in a blender, because of the deep nature of the bin, I just needed to put a little bit more in. And so I have this handy dandy tool that most people probably don't have, but my mom got it for me as a gift. And I was trying to figure out what I would use it for. And because I don't really make turkey or chicken to baste it that often. She got me this little handy Cuisinart thing with this little brush. So I'm going to take my aioli and I'm going to pour it in. You guys can see what it looks like there. It smells so good. Can you guys see the thickness of it? Can you see? It almost looks like a pesto. Okay. And I'll put that like so over there. And now for the cabbage. So I have my oven preheating to 350, and I'm going to cut my cabbage. You can use green cabbage, which is what this is, or you can use purple cabbage. Perfect. You're not going to use the entire head. You can also use a Napa or a Savoy. You actually can also use cauliflower. I give a lot of different, I've created these diagrams or these graphics that I post on my Instagram account that will show you like cauliflower and all the different ways that you can cook it, or cabbage or avocado, things that you can do, because sometimes we get very narrow-minded on what we can do with specific vegetables or fruits, or any food for that matter. So I cut the bottom off. I want it on a solid surface when I'm going to cut. And I'm going to just cut down the center to make it a little easier for me to work through this cabbage. I'm going to cut this center out here. So this is the knob that is pretty hard. Just like so. And then, you guys see okay? I'm going to cut this into, like 1 inch, 3/4 of an inch steaks, or half steaks, I should say. Now, you don't even have to, if you want to do this recipe and you just want to put on top, you can do it that way too. So now we've got our steaks, and I'm just going to line them on my pan like so. I'm only going to do half of the cabbage. Put this aside. And then I'm literally just going to paint. I'm going to paint this on. You can also just pour it on, but just like this. And you want to be fairly generous. Look how beautiful this is. Can you guys see how gorgeous this is? And this will last, like if you were to do this amount You know, this will last, 3 days in the fridge. Okay. And now I'm going to put it in the oven, just like that. I mean, come on, this is gorgeous. I can't I always stop to look at how beautiful the food is. So
It's such a simple, like,
it's super simple. And one of the things I always say is that the most important ingredient in food, whether you are preventing illness or recovering from illness and just maintaining health, is love. That is the most important ingredient.
Yeah. You don't want to munch on it?
Okay. So while that's in the oven, we're going to jump on to the next recipe. Okay. So this, I always like to give a little bit of a plug for Heston Cookware. So Heston Culinary is a company that sponsors my work, my education work, and has sent me all these beautiful pots to cook out of. So it's a real treat for me. And this is a 5-quart, and it's absolutely beautiful, and it cooks well. So what we're going to do here, so the first thing I want to talk about for this dish, and this is a chickpea tikka masala, is this is a spice mixture. And primarily, spices that are used oftentimes in Indian cooking, and all of them are anti-inflammatory. I've mixed them together. You have the measurements. What I like to sometimes do is I like to make that spice mixture. I will double it or triple it and just kind of mix everything together and keep it in a jar. I love having ball jars, these kinds of jars just around the house. And we actually drink out of them because I make dressings in them. I do everything in them. I store smoothies in them, keep spice mixes in there. So, so then for this dish here, I'm going to put my spices aside right now. I'm going to take a leek. So leeks are in the allium family. They're anti-inflammatory, antibacterial. You want to put any kind of onion or allium, whether it's a leek or scallion or chive or garlic, into food as a rule of thumb. Slice it in half. Leeks are oftentimes very dirty. This one's very clean. So you just want to look through and make sure that you don't need to rinse it. You take off the caps, the tops. You can use that, put it aside for a broth if you want to make a broth. But in any event, I'm just going to slice this down. Now, in terms of knife skills, the unfortunate thing about online training for me or online teaching for me is that I don't get to walk around and help everybody with knife skills. But I'm going to give you a couple of pointers. And the first is a sharp knife is much safer than a dull knife. So make sure you have one good sharp knife. You want to use a knife that's like a chef's knife, so about an 8-inch knife versus with a smoother edge versus a serrated knife, okay? And when you chop, your knife should be an extension of your arm. And you're going to go do a motion like this. I don't have any knife skills videos yet, but hopefully someday soon I will. And you just want to rock it back and forth. So I'm going to get this going. I'm going to turn my heat on to a medium. Okay, and I'm going to put my olive oil in. Okay, and you could also use ghee, which is clarified butter, used oftentimes in Indian cooking. Now, if you have a true dairy allergy, meaning that you're allergic to casein, which is the milk protein, or you have lactose intolerance, ghee is actually something that can be tolerated because it is both casein and lactose free. So it's a great alternative. It adds delicious flavor. It's quite expensive. So you want to make a little bit go a long way. So I've got that going. I'm going to have my leek here. And then I'm going to get my ginger and put my ginger here. Put this leek aside. So I've got 3 cloves of garlic here. I'm going to do it the same way that I did it. I'm not going to remove the germ on here because it doesn't affect me and my family. Although I'm the only one in the house right now who's going to be eating this dish. Any questions, guys or girls?
So for the ginger, or
Yeah.
you're not there yet, so I guess I'll wait.
Yeah, I'll get to the ginger in a moment. Yeah, ginger's a funny thing. Okay, so I'm going to just mince this, just like so. My book actually has about 50 recipes in it, so you can always get more recipes there. I also, on my website, if you sign up for my newsletter, or even if you just go to my website, I post a recipe of the week. So you can get more recipes there. And some of the stuff we're doing in these classes every Wednesday night. And if you wanna opt into these classes that we have, they're $25 a class, but I'm offering a free code. You can try the class, just do a drop-in, and it's Cook With Me. And you can just try the class for free. And if you like it, you can sign up. You probably can, and I would freeze it in like ice cube trays, kind of like you would a like a pesto.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Okay.
now, did I answer that? I don't know
Yes.
who asked that. And so here's a little knob of ginger. This ginger is organic, so I'm not peeling it. If my ginger is not organic, I will peel it. And this is my ceramic ginger grater. You can also just chop ginger if you want, or you can use a microplane for ginger. But I'm going to do it on here. So put your onions and your leeks and your garlic in and let it start to cook, and then you're going to get your ginger in.
Can I chop the garlic because we don't have a grater here?
The garlic or the ginger?
I meant the ginger, sorry.
Yeah, so all you're going to do is kind of chop ginger just like so, the way you would chop garlic. So that's totally fine. This ginger here, unfortunately, I thought I had bought all this fresh ginger, but I didn't. So I had a little bit left. And when ginger is on the older side, it can be a little stringy. Just so you guys can understand, you know, textures of food.
Oh, we put it in.
So I'm putting my ginger in there, but I'm also going to put this ginger in.
Easier to just like
scoop it in, right?
Okay. I'll tell you, I never really thought when designing my little kitchen that it would be perfect for teaching. So it's easy space to teach in. Okay. So now these guys are going, you can see, just like so. And now I'm going to put my spices in. I'm going to let that mix around. And you let that go for about, 2 minutes or so, and the aromatics start to come out. And it's really unbelievable. You can see what that looks like. So I'm going to let that go there. And then get my other ingredients handy. You can also get creative and put more vegetables in this dish if you want. I like it like this. I like to serve it with rice, or we're going to serve it on top of the cabbage. I'm checking my cabbage steaks right now, and they're looking good. So this is about ready for me to just add the rest of my ingredients. And this is how easy this is. My chickpeas, so I've rinsed the chickpeas. I've got a 28-ounce BPA-free can. So oftentimes chemicals used in packaging have, or they're hormone disruptors. And so industry has gotten a little more in line with the research, and they're doing better things with packaging. So I put my diced tomatoes in, and I'm going to mix that. And you can, that's okay. So if you don't like coconut milk, there's some people who do have aversion to it. Just cook it like this, put your spinach and cilantro in, and you're done. But I'm putting the coconut milk in. So this is
And
full.
you put the whole can?
Yep, you can put the whole can. And now you're just going to let your dish cook down.
Got like a lighter version.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's the one that I think is like super fatty. That's my favorite. Oh, and the chickpeas also.
And
Just
you know, you
chickpeas
remember
covered?
it's going to cook down. So it looks like this now, and it's going to cook down. So I'm going to let that cook a bit before I add my spinach, and then finish it with the cilantro.
So the chickpeas go in now?
Yep, put the chickpeas in, the tomatoes in, and the coconut milk in. It's really that simple. Like it's so basic. And then this dish here, you can freeze. You know, you can eat it and then you can freeze it and it will last. And that's why I love this dish. And you can serve it with all types of rice. I mean, you could do white rice, red rice, black rice, brown rice if you prefer. So it goes really well with really anything. I wouldn't serve it with pasta. It's not really, doesn't really go with pasta. So I'm just gonna let that cook, and that's it. We'll finish it with the spinach and the cilantro and maybe a little salt, and voila. So it's that simple, and I'd love to open this up now to a Q&A while everything is cooking. You know, just so I want to give you guys a little bit of a framework. I spent 20 years in private practice working with people one-on-one within the context of their homes, teaching them how to shift and navigate food choice to prevent and manage illness. And I would say 70% or 75% of the people I worked with had some type of cancer. And I often, earlier in my career, I privately cooked for several people who were living with cancer. So I honor and appreciate all of you, and any questions that I can answer, I'm happy to.
So are there specific foods that you should eat at certain stages of, like, when you're taking chemo or when you're in maintenance or anything like that, that would help to like alleviate your symptoms?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I think it really differs from person to person. When you're going, like if you are, you know, if you're in a surgical situation and you're pre-op and you're post-op, you know, and then you're on chemo and medication, I think what I like to do with people is I like to look at what each person can tolerate, because everybody's tolerance is different. So I don't like to give a definitive mapping of you have to eat this and you have to eat that, because then I think it ends up setting people up for failure. But some of the go-tos, particularly during treatment, is a dish called congee, you know, because oftentimes you're dealing with things, it's difficult to swallow or to digest, or you don't have much of an appetite. And so congee is a wonderful recipe to work with, and it's like a rice-based porridge that you put protein in, like a white fish into, and maybe some toasted sesame oil and a little bit of tamari, and it's super easy on digestion. My friend and colleague Rebecca Katz wrote a book called One Bite at a Time, which really guides people through what to eat specifically during each stage. Also, she wrote a book called The Cancer Fighting Kitchen. So both of those books, I think, are phenomenal guides on trying different things out during different stages. But as an overall rule of thumb in terms of prevention and keeping yourself healthy, you know, I would, you know, focus on a whole foods based diet. You'd love to, it's important to incorporate various seaweeds into your diet. There's some science out there that points to a slower progression with including seaweed in a diet. I would stay away from, you know, chemicals in your food. I would navigate alcohol consumption. You don't want a ton of sugar, but having some is okay. So I hope that answers. I would pack it with spices and herbs and garlic and onions, and just have a lot of that. Turmeric, fresh turmeric. So I hope that helps.
Are you anti-meat or did you mention that or not? I'm sorry.
So I'm not anti-meat at all. My belief system is that we are what we eat, and we are what they ate and how they were treated. So what I love to do is steer people towards the higher welfare options, which you can look for SEALs certifications on animal foods from A Greener World. There's animal welfare approved, and they're certified humane. And so I like to steer people towards plant-centric, but including animal proteins, if that's what you want to do. I mean, I eat animal protein, but I try to do the higher welfare. So organic doesn't matter as much to me as high welfare, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I talk about a lot of this in my book. My book is really a guide. It's sort of an encyclopedic guide on how to make healthier food choices. And it's now in audio, so you can listen to parts of it. I think that for some people, maybe listening to little snippets of it is, no pun intended, more digestible.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to just chuck my spinach in right now. And that's 2 cups of packed spinach.
So for people that have a sweet tooth,
Yeah.
I know you said to kind of stay away from sugar, but are there healthier choices that are like anti-inflammatory choices for sweet?
You know, your best, listen, I mean, you know, I'll never forget, I many years ago, I did this huge workshop called Food Solutions, Navigating Cancer, and a 40-year-old woman who had just had a double mastectomy raised her hand, and she was in tears, and she said, my doctor told me I could never eat sugar again. And my entire adult life, I have 1 cup of coffee a day with a little bit of half and half and a teaspoon of sugar. And I'm miserable without it. And she said, I don't know what to do. And she's sobbing. And I said, have the coffee. Said the cost of you not having the coffee is greater than the price you would pay to have it. So my philosophy is pick and choose. So dark chocolate is a great option if you've got a sweet tooth. Dried fruit, if you're, like for me, I love gummy bears, to be honest with you. It's sort of a thing that I grew up with. But I won't eat the Haribo gummy bears so I'll go and I'll get, there's a brand called Yum Earth. So I just try to do things that don't have the toxicities in it. I personally live with an autoimmune disease and a kidney disease, and I can't eat a lot of sugar. I don't have a palate for it, but I actually can't eat it. So, when I do, I pick and choose. Also, nuts are great, like mixing nuts with raisins, or some dark chocolate, like having a trail mix with some dark chocolate and nuts is great to have too. Okay. So this is what the dish is looking like now. Can you guys see?
Ours looks almost like that.
We're getting there.
Perfect.
Is it supposed to, you said reduce? I know we put the cover on. Does it still reduce?
Leave the cover off and it will reduce.
Okay.
Keep the cover off a bit. And so the cabbage is not fully done, but I just want to show you what it's looking like.
Oh, shoot, that's not fully.
So I'm going to let it go more. And then I just wanted you guys to see what it looks like at this stage.
What should it look like?
What? With a cabbage?
Yeah.
Well, I just showed you it's not done yet. So I'm going to show you when it's done,
Okay.
what it looks like. So you have both perspectives. Does everybody here like to cook?
I love to cook.
So if there's anyone here who doesn't like to cook, just start out with one thing. Just start out with one thing and keep it super simple. I'm big into honoring and accepting what you can do and never judging what you can't. And that's really, really important. That's wonderful. So mine is really starting to cook down, which is nice. It's getting thicker. You can see it. And then I'm gonna trim a little bit of my cilantro off, if I can find my cilantro in here. Yes. Well, I'm gonna show you guys a little trick. So the thing about cilantro or parsley, the leafy green herbs, is that you can use the stems just as much as you're using the leaves. And here you see I'm just shaving it off like so. Voila. Okay. And oftentimes what I do with this is I'll just keep this and I'll put that in a green smoothie. So in my book, I have a recipe for a smoothie. There's also a recipe on my website right now. And you can just save the stems and do that. I'm putting my cilantro in to finish this dish.
What other stems are good to save?
Parsley stems. You don't want the woody stems. So the thyme and oregano, the sage can be a bit woody, the rosemary. But in terms of, dill, sometimes the stems can be super tough. Dill, basil, parsley, cilantro. So those are the stems that you can use. And so I turned it off. So now, one of the things I like to do is I put the fresh herbs in at the end, and I'll turn the heat off. So I have as much nutrition as possible from the herbs. One thing I urge all of you, and I think it's really hard when you're diagnosed with illness, And there's so many things that you have to do and maybe that you want to do. And not everything you can get to. And as I always say, I've worked with so many people over the years, and I've found that a lot of people are in this state of, I call it nutrition analysis, which ultimately leads them to this state of culinary paralysis. And I think one of the best examples is I was speaking one day when my book came out, and a man raised his hand and he said, Stefanie, what is the healthiest way for me to eat cauliflower? Isn't it raw? He goes, but I hate it raw. And so I looked at him and I said, how do you like your cauliflower? He said, I like it sauteed. I said, so eat it sauteed. And he was not eating it sauteed because he felt that he was losing too much nutrition. So he was eating it raw, but he didn't like it raw. You want to like your food.
So, oh, sorry, go on.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
There's a lot of talk that I've just heard while working at Mount Sinai about food and people's questions that cruciferous foods are not ideal to eat because they're so gas causing and it causes discomfort. So does cooking it reduce that?
Yes. So cooking it really, really helps it. The other thing that I would recommend is that if the cruciferous vegetables are creating too much gas, just eat far less of them and work your way up. Another gas causing food, which you hear a lot about, are legumes, are the beans. So one of the things you can do, and even sometimes the high fiber grains like a brown rice or a red rice or even a black forbidden rice. So what I do is a lot of times, and we were taught this in culinary school, and is when you're cooking beans and grains, you can in fact put kombu seaweed. If you wait 1 second, I'll show you guys what kombu seaweed is. So kombu seaweed, and like I was telling you, the science on the seaweed is there. The NIH actually published a study that incorporating seaweed into the diet, there are compounds in the seaweed that can help slow down the progression of cancers. And so this is kombu. And what's fascinating is this will grow into like a larger piece when it's wet. But what's fascinating is you put this in a dish. We could have even used it in here, for example. And it actually works as a digestive aid. And so not only is the food absorbing the nutrients in this, it's not absorbing the flavor, FYI, because this really doesn't have much flavor. You pull it out at the end as you would a bay leaf out of soup. Yet it really helps make your more fibrous plant foods more digestible. So I would recommend it as an option. And I'll throw it into soups and stews, but this is kombu. And you can get it, at any, Asian market you can get it at, or you can get it at, most grocery stores in an international section. And of course they have it at Fairway, at Whole Foods, whatever you're near. Now, this is the cabbage, guys. So you can see it nicely crisped out. And that's that. And it's really, really good, actually cold as well. It's really nice. And I'm just going to put some more on just because I have a little bit left. And with the rest of the cabbage that you have, you can again serve this another night, or can make a slaw out of it. But what the advantage to this is that it's cooked and it's easier to digest. I think Faith may want to come out and meet everybody. She's barking. So now I just want to plate this for you and show you how beautiful. Okay. So you can just do that. And
Stephanie, we have a question. In general, sometimes stews or chilies can be too watery. Is there a natural way to kind of thicken them up? You know, it's something that happens to me often, as I am not a naturally talented chef.
yeah, so you know, it depends. Always look at the liquid that you're putting in. So if your dish right there is too watery for you, then next time, you know, okay, you know, I'm going to drain my tomatoes, for example, and not put the tomatoes in with the liquid, or I'm going to use half of the coconut milk. The other thing is you can just keep it cooking down even more. When you're working with canned beans, one of the things that you do want to think about is making sure you rinse all the beans off, because that gets off unnecessary starch and liquid. And I always tell this story. Both of my children, I have a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old, 2 boys, and they've been in the kitchen with me since they were super little. And one time I was making a chili, and my older son was 2, and he was kind of positioned right here, and I had cans of beans here. And before I knew it, he took the cans and he dumped them into the pot. I had not rinsed the beans yet. And lo and behold, I had a pot of mucus. And so I had to throw it all out because the liquid from the beans was so starchy that it transformed the dish into just, it's too slimy. So you always want to rinse them. So hopefully that answers the question, yeah. Rachel.
And do you have any tricks? What if something's too salty, which I've done before? Is there a way to kind of de-salt dishes?
Yeah, so usually you can balance the salt. There's something called FAS, fat, acid, sweet, salt. Okay, and then there's like this 5th kind of flavor, umami, you know, which we get from like miso or tamari, and it's like a deeper, saltier flavor. So when you the only way you can truly ruin a dish, in my opinion, is if you put too much salt in. So as I always say, put the salt in at the end. That's it. Just put it in at the end. Even if the recipe calls for salt, just put a smidgen of it in and then salt it at the end. But how you can balance salt is with fat, okay? You can dilute it with water, and sometimes you can soften it with a sweet, like a honey or a maple syrup. Mm. And sometimes if you feel like you've oversalted something and your dish has citrus in it, so it has lemon in it, you can actually add more citrus and it will kind of over peak your salt, if that makes sense.
Great.
Yeah.
Does anyone have other questions?
So the sodium in 1 sheet of this is 110 milligrams, which is not a lot. And the benefits you would get from it are far superior. So a reduced, you know, because a lot of times if we have too much salt, we're retaining water, particularly if we're on, you know, any kind of steroid. So I would not even think about seaweed as sort of adding too much sodium to your diet. You could rinse it, but unless you're dealing with a seaweed that's salted, like sometimes those toasted nori sheets will have oil on them, don't do those. But the seaweed that you're going to put in your dish, pull out, it's really nominal. Seaweed, we think of seaweed snacks, and then seaweed snacks are the ones that have a lot of added ingredients. Any other questions, ladies? Oh, that's Faith. You want to say hello? Oh, she doesn't. I just got her a bark collar, and it's actually just activated with her barking. But you can all see her tail. You want to say
Wow,
hi?
it actually works.
Yeah.
Come here. Say hi. You can come say hi. No. Yeah, she would like to say hi, but you know, I'm not going to let her up on the counter today. There she is. And so I urge you to go to my website, and you can, you know, if anyone's on social media, you can follow me on Instagram. That's where I begrudgingly do most of my social media because I have to do it. But my website, you'll get newsletters. You'll learn about the weekly cooking classes and anything else that I'm up to that can be of support or help. And don't, you know, I'll put my email in too. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. It just may take me a little bit to get back to you, but I will.
This was amazing. I just want to take note of the time because it's 11:56. So I want to just be mindful of everyone's schedule. But this was really amazing. Rachel and I are so excited to eat
So
this. I'm like
And this is
patiently
how
awaiting the cabbage to be done. Wow.
That's what it looks like. And have it for dinner, you know, make it for dinner and make some rice and throw that with it. And it's, it'll be a really nice meal. It's balanced, it's healthy, anti-inflammatory. And if you do have a lot of issues with beans and cruciferous vegetables, just have a little bit of it.
Right.
Don't eat too much of it. Bye, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Thank you so
you.
much. So exciting.
Let me know how it goes.